Om Amriteshwariyai. I humbly bow down to Amma, Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, my spiritual master, inspiration, and guiding light. A very good evening to all the great souls who have gathered here this evening. And thank you very much for inviting me. My love and greetings to everyone. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics, our host today. They have a robust agenda to cultivate civil virtues in students and faculty. A special thanks to the current director, Ms. Joan McGregor. Discussing civic character and virtue requires addressing vice, as the pursuit of virtue implies the existence of certain vices. Now the question is, what is virtue and what is a vice? And how do you replace vice with virtue? A virtue is a trait of excellence that can be moral, social, or intellectual. Above all, it is a spiritual quality, a deep feeling close to your heart, and something you want to uphold in all circumstances. It's a disposition to act in specific ways, such as choosing actions that show high ethical standards. Virtues are innate character traits that must be practiced. Vice, contrasting with virtue, signifies finding delight in wrongdoing. The practice of moral and epistemic virtues also involve awareness. If the awareness aspect is not considered, then virtues one tries to practice and imbibe may only be temporary. However, suppose you want to be a benefactor of the world, an inspirer, and a good example to others. In that case, awareness must be maintained in all circumstances. This is because unawareness of your vices can hinder us from being virtuous. A truly virtuous person feels dissatisfied when they act out of awareness, without awareness. Your conscience will weigh you down, resulting in discontentment. Whenever you act with awareness or understanding, you will experience a deep contentment. And that indeed is the reward. Some degree of discipline is necessary to develop epistemic virtues, as the subconscious mind keeps imposing the dormant vices that we are more inclined to follow. This is why practicing awareness is important. The virtues that develop once awareness comes are the byproducts. They are secondary. We must first focus on gaining awareness rather than the byproducts. For instance, what is the most fundamental aspect of our existence? The most fundamental, obvious, but unaware aspect of our existence. You said it right. I thought you would say body, mind, emotions, intellect. No. The answer is actually our breathing, isn't it? However, are we conscious of our breathing? The fundamental thing. Are we conscious? Are we aware That something, breathing is something that happens continuously, regardless of where we are, what we are doing, even in sleep, but we are not aware of it. We miss the obvious, that is the most obvious, or primary, and focus more on the secondary or the byproducts. I have heard Amma tell this story. A man on a motorcycle approached the border with the two large bags. The customs officer stopped him and asked, "What is in the bags?" "Just sand," he replied. The customs officer replied, we will see about that. Get off the bike." He dumped the bags, finding only sand. He detained the man overnight to analyze the sand for gold, drugs, and explosives. Ultimately, nothing was found, just sand. With no choice, the officer released the man to cross the border with the sand on his motorcycle. A week later, the man again came with two bags. The customs officer again detained him overnight. In the morning, he was released with his motorcycle and two bags of sand. This process repeated over the next few months. Months passed without the man crossing the border. One day, the customs officer saw him in a restaurant. He said, "Hey, I know you are up to something, but I don't know what. It is driving me crazy. I can't sleep at night. Just between you and me, what are you smuggling? Why are you smuggling worthless sand?" Sipping his drink, the man smiled and said, "Officer, I'm not smuggling sand. I'm smuggling stolen motorcycles." So the customs officer fixated on the bags and overlooked the obvious, the motorcycle. Likewise, we often focus on results and miss the more important aspect of awareness, and awareness is here in the present moment. Action is in the present moment. And we can exercise maximum control over our actions, whereas the future, the byproduct, is not under our control. On the contrary, if we focus on the present, on the action, we will definitely have a very good result. And we can also imbue maximum energy on the present, on the action. So now the question is, how do we cultivate awareness? One method is practicing meditation or self-examination. At universities, it is often up to the faculty to impart values to students. If students are taught values at home, they will become more familiar with consumption but lack restraint. Restraint is a very difficult lesson to learn. It requires time and integrity to cultivate. The only way restraint can develop is through love and compassion. Then it is not a burden. Normally, restraint is a burden. But if you have love, love for your own self, love for society, love for the downtrodden, then it's not a burden. It becomes our dharma, our primary duty. The conversation then changes from entitlement to collective and individual responsibility towards society. We take time off from work to relax. In America, it's a normal thing every week. Every Monday we plan where are we going next weekend, which restaurant, which beach, which picnic spot. Eating outside on weekends, pleasure trips, and vacationing are typical ways to unwind. We may feel relaxed, but for how long? The ever-active mind with its unbroken flow of thoughts and emotions, unresolved emotions, will keep disturbing us. Hence, the virtue of relaxation doesn't come just like that. And this is why spiritual masters recommend meditation, self-inquiry, and more such practices. We are meeting at Arizona State University, the #1 university in the United States for innovation. Innovation is essential in all realms of science. At the same time, it is necessary to focus on nurturing virtues such as compassion, empathy, humility, and openness to diverse perspectives. Amma, the chancellor of Amrita University, says, youth is the midpoint of life, the center between childhood and old age. At that point, you are neither ignorant or innocent. Innocence also means ignorance at that stage. You are neither ignorant like a child, nor too filled with information like in old age. This is the only stage of life where maximum energy is possible, is available. If it is channeled correctly, you can create transformation within and without. If we responsibly care for our younger generation, instilling the right virtues and values, the world's future will be safe. Unquote. I was telling us today that our youngsters are not careless, they are caredless. Amma also says there are two types of education. Education for earning a livelihood or a living, and education for life. When we study in college, striving to become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or a scientist, that is education for living. But education for life requires understanding the essential principles of life, the inside, not just the outside world, the inside world. That is what is known as spirituality. It is about gaining a deeper understanding of the world, our minds, our emotions, and ourselves. Unquote, which brings us to compassion. Compassion is distinct from love, kindness, intelligence, or emotions we often experience. While compassion encompasses elements of love, kindness, intelligence, and emotions, it fundamentally refers from them. Genuine compassion reflects our true essence and involves a spiritual transformation akin to the journey from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Initially, when it is still in its form, it is hard to imagine that this small, somewhat unsightly egg will eventually turn into a beautiful, vibrant butterfly. With nature's gentle guidance, the egg develops into a caterpillar, then into a cocoon, and ultimately into a butterfly. So each of these stages is entirely different from the previous one. Observing a captivating butterfly in flight reminds us of the beauty of creation. Similarly, we too can cultivate inner beauty, develop wings of love and compassion, and soar in the vastness of existence. So compassion has three dimensions: consciousness, compassion, and creativity. 3 C's: consciousness, compassion, and creativity. 3 C's. The distinction between consciousness, compassion, and creativity is merely for convenience in defining their functions. As Amma says, fundamentally, they are the same, representing 3 functions of the same consciousness. Just like a light bulb, refrigerator, fan, TV, computer, or any electronic equipment cannot function without electricity, consciousness is the substratum for compassion and creativity. As you will see in the video that will be played while your questions are being collected at the end of my talk, we change lives at Amrita through an experiential learning program, which has already been mentioned here, where the students, after spending time with the villagers, they become more humbler, they become more humble, loving, compassionate. And they become very careful, they are more concerned about society, about the people around them. And this understanding comes through their direct experience, first-hand experience, because they see the self-sacrifice, the struggle of the villagers to exist. So this not only leads the live-in labs, as mentioned earlier, this leads not only to compassion, but also promotes a reflection on the students' personal consumption and the behavioral patterns, wastage, and needs, which automatically leads to decreased self-consumption and a desire to give back to these communities. And we also found that this experience makes the students humbler, which is a very important quality, virtue in today's world. The more humble you are, the more selfless you become. The more selfless you become, the more you serve society, the more compassionate you are, because you are increasing the consciousness within you. An expansion of consciousness happens within you. And you can accommodate more people, more living beings, more of nature. So compassion is vital and should be integrated into all areas of human interaction. Its absence fuels personal and global issues, such as divorce, for example, violence, lack of compassion. We say understanding, but it is just a synonym of compassion. And why do some societal segments gain respect while others are rejected? Lack of compassion. What drives greed, drug abuse, child trafficking, and even terrorism? Lack of compassion. What underlines climate change and nature exploitation? Lack of compassion. We don't know how to treat nature compassionately. And that's what's happening. The technical and scientific analysis, of course, is necessary, but something that the heart, that's something that is innate to us, something that is very close to nature, our own self, that is compassion. We are missing that. So one of life's most important goals is to undertake life as a journey from a human form to a human being. Speaking about compassion, I'm inspired to share a few words about my direct experience with Amma, who has personally embraced people from all 6 continents for the last 55 years. She has hugged over 40 million people. She gives the same love and affection to all living beings. She does this 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and sits in one place for hours. And depending on the crowd, it can be around 6 hours to 16 hours. There have also been occasions when Amma continuously hugged people for 27 to 28 hours. And I have been living in Amma's ashram, Amma's organization for the last 45 years. And I haven't seen, I'm not exaggerating at all, I haven't seen Amma canceling a single program due to any physical ailment. Amma gives spiritual talks worldwide and even addressed the United Nations General Assembly in Geneva. However, she is most known for her healing embrace. To put it in Amma's own words, just a loving touch, a compassionate glance, a kind word, and a seemingly insignificant but selfless act can create change. Even though many of you may not agree, I wish to share another thought with you. All virtues and vices can be brought under two categories: love and grief. Love and grief. All virtues, such as compassion, patience, forgiveness, perseverance, etc., are offshoots of love. In contrast, all vices, such as lovelessness, impatience, hatred, jealousy, depression, etc., are offshoots of grief. Because the end result is grief. That's the fundamental problem. And compassion for the planet is also an essential aspect of Amrita. And it must be an aspect of all universities. Compassion for the planet. And several projects such as seaweed cultivation or ocean farming have been thoroughly researched and are underway to restore marine ecosystems and address nutritional deficiencies. Our volunteers and centers worldwide have undertaken tree planting and forest rejuvenation on a vast scale. Through this project, students have planted millions of trees and made and distributed seed balls in every state in India and many other countries. In 2001, an earthquake devastated western Gujarat in India. 20,000 people died, and most of the survivors lost their homes. Our NGO responded by adopting 3 villages in a remote area called Bhuj. When we arrived, the people feared we should try to influence their culture, religion, and lifestyle. But we patiently explained that we wanted to rebuild their villages exactly as they wanted. And we ended up building 1,200 houses for the victims and also rebuilt their places of worship. And 3 years later, when the 2004 Indonesian tsunami, South Asian tsunami, flooded the area surrounding our NGO headquarters on the Arabian Sea, the people from that village, from Bhuj, put aside all differences of culture, religion, and rushed to help us aid the victims. And when journalists asked them why they had made the long journey from the north to the south India, they replied, when we faced suffering and loss, Amma's NGO did not try to change our culture, religion, or way of life. They compassionately gave us what we requested. And we are forever indebted for that. And this is how compassionate actions reciprocate. Reciprocate and create a circle of compassion. Birth only grants us a human form. Compassion makes us human beings. So it's a journey from human being to humane beings. That's what compassion does. I remember a story narrated by one of Amma's followers who had been asked to spend a few days videotaping the poor people in their original homes before moving into the new homes Amma had built for them. And there was this man told me there was a woman. I don't really know her story, but was an old widow with earlobes elongated by heavy jewelry, long since gone, no doubt to make ends meet. Before getting into the car, I looked back and grew still with wonder. There, in the age-old tradition of India, as night was falling, the ancient woman was lighting a lamp in the doorway. And she did it entirely by feel, for she was blind. A blind woman lighting a lamp for those who can see. Compassion in action. Again, I quote Amma, there are two types of poverty. The poverty caused by lack of food, clothing, and shelter, and poverty caused by lack of love and compassion. Of these two, the second type needs to be considered first, because if we have love and compassion in our hearts, we will wholeheartedly serve those who lack food, clothing, and shelter. Unquote. We live in an age where modern youth scoff at spirituality, traditions, and how our forefathers lived in harmony with nature. They brand the ancient ways of worshipping nature as primitive and uncivilized. However, now, humanity is slowly beginning to understand that there is truth in the words of the seers. So there is some effort to practice, their advice. What Amma says, what we are lacking is a reverential attitude, a loving attitude. If there is love, everything else will be taken care of. If there is compassion, you don't need to force yourself to do something. It becomes a second nature. You will feel the pain. That's most important, a longing within you to serve society, to serve humanity, to serve nature. A crucial question is, how long Earth, our only home, can sustain life? This concern has intensified in recent decades due to technological advancements that have made our lives more comfortable and given us a better understanding of the world. However, we are not at peace despite improvements such as jet airplanes, credit cards, ATMs, the internet, robots, and AI. Something feels off. What went wrong? This needs to be contemplated. And the revelation doesn't simply happen. Only a meditative mind. Look at all our eminent scientists, people who have accomplished. They were good meditators. I wouldn't call them spiritual people, but in a way they were spiritual, but they were meditative. From meditation, revelations happen. Observation. Observation culminates in meditation. Imagination should transform into observation, and observation should transform into meditation. They were all good observers. Our forefathers were good observers. Native Americans were good observers. All of aborigines of every country. That's why they worshipped nature. The advance of scientific knowledge made man more confident. He became more egoistic, arrogant, thinking we are closer to understanding the secret of creation. We believe we are in control and that everything in nature, the entire creation, is for our enjoyment only. We can do whatever we want. It's my life. I will do whatever I want. Who are you to question me? This is the attitude. And we forget the biggest power, nature, universe, on the other side. And we are small fries. And there is a law, because there is a structure everywhere. Even at home, there is a structure. So the universe must have a structure. We are challenging that structure. That's law. So we can do whatever we want and no questions asked. Then why is a nagging feeling of anxiety, fear, and uncertainty creeping into our minds? Why? It's not the natural demise of our planet billions of years from now that we should be worrying about. We have an immediate problem, a problem we created, a problem our selfishness, our greed, our ego has created. That impact is already being felt. Nature has a plan. So we don't need to worry about the natural demise of the planet. If nature knows how to create this universe from nothing, it also knows how to manage it. The reality is that without virtues, we may destroy our home, Mother Earth, Mother Nature, much before its natural demise. We talk about global warming, pollution, natural disasters, etc. But we are not ready to give up any of our comforts, are we? We know what to do, but we don't want to. We don't want to give up anything. We may burn down our own homes because of our stupidity, ignorance, and ego. Again, I quote Amma, the ground floor of a building is on fire. Someone on the ground floor shouts for help. The person on the 5th floor hears the call. However, he says, it's only the ground floor. Let the people down there deal with it. This is our attitude. We conveniently forget that the fire will soon spread and our floor also will be engulfed in flames. I continue. Amma continues. The coronavirus originated in China. It affected the entire world. So it is one world. At least during these disasters, these epidemics, we should understand there is a positive message. The message of oneness, the message of unity. We believe technology can fix the problem. For instance, electric cars make gasoline seem obsolete. But how do we charge them? How will electricity be produced? Will it come from burning coal or natural gas? Can we stop using plastic? Ancient seers foresaw these challenges and warned us, but we haven't heeded their advice. Instead, we have rushed into relentless rat race of our society, driven by greed and fear. And caught in this trap, we have overlooked the fundamental interconnectedness of our world. We need virtue to see that interconnectedness. Not superficial, not superficial. Meditative virtue, I would say. Meditative virtue. Look deep. Observe closely. Meditate. Amma says our guiding principle should be mingle, not single. Mingle, not single. It is high time to recognize the principle of oneness amidst diversity. Ignoring it will pose a serious threat to our existence. Unquote. As I conclude, I invite faculty and students to come to Amrita, participate in live-in labs, train PhD students, co-create an Amrita Arizona State Center of Compassionate Innovative Research and work together on compassion-based cutting-edge research. I thank Arizona State University, the Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics Director, Ms. Joanne McGregor, the organizers, the faculty, and the students for this memorable opportunity. Thank you so much. Om Amriteshwariye Namah.
It's not finished, I'm right.
So the first question, I have only chosen some because I have a flight to catch. To fly to San Francisco and from there to Singapore and back to India. So the first question is, can compassion become harmful without limiting principles. I didn't understand the last part of the question. Limiting principles means without restraint or without?
Without any constraints, any boundaries.
Okay. See, compassion has an indispensable factor to it. When you say compassion, it's not unrestrained. Compassion has a factor of discernment. You have to exercise discernment while being compassionate to anyone. Suppose someone approaches for money. He looks poor, so you give him some money. However, he may use it for self-destructive practices, such as drinking or smoking pot. So even though it may look like a compassionate action, we are feeding into his destructive practices. So a true compassionate person will be as soft as a flower and as hard as a diamond. Which means there are occasions when you have to be firm, unshakable, like a mountain, like the Himalayas, and say a big no. There is absolutely no compromise. Because as long as you live in this world, suppose you are in some cave or some mountains, it doesn't matter. You don't have to care about anyone. You are all alone there. But as long as you're working in society, you are a responsible, compassionate people are responsible people. They cannot act irresponsibly. Look at Amma. She's very compassionate, but also she is responsible for everything that happens in the world. And that's why she built an orphanage in Kenya. And that's why she contributes to disasters anywhere in the world, not just in India. So it crosses all barriers, but at the same time, there is a firmness, there is a courage, there is understanding. So as long as you are in the world, compassion is not 100%, I would say. It's relative. So compassion is not an act of a meek person. It's not the sign of weakness. Conversely, it takes a lot of courage, understanding. When I say understanding, it is not understanding others, it's understanding oneself. Because understanding others is almost impossible. But if you understand yourself, you will have light within you. And in that light, you will understand others also. So that's why I said self-examination or meditation, observation. Means observation is also not outside. You're observing your own mind, your own weaknesses. So there, the competition is not outside. Your own weaknesses are your competitors. Your weaknesses. You compete with them and you win over them. So it's not easy. It's not an easy path. But if there is one person, for example, this campus has, I think, 50,000 students. Out of 50,000 people, can we have at least 3 compassionate people, really compassionate people? That's enough. I would say that's enough. That 3 people can set an example and you can inspire others. You can create a wildfire with that. Amma is just one single person. And she has influenced millions of people across the globe, including the Prime Minister of India, I would say. So it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. But for that, the strength doesn't come from outside. You have to find the strength within, because that's the source. That's the source of compassion, that's the source of virtue, and that's also the source of all vices. So the work has to be done there. How do we practice compassion when we see conflict wars everywhere? What sustains compassion in our heart? When we talk about conflict and war, it's not something new. It has always been there. Since time immemorial, conflict and wars were always there. And it will continue like that. As long as human beings are identified with the mind, the emotions, the negativities, how can we expect a completely peaceful world? We cannot. That also is relative. Sometimes war is necessary. I mean, when I say war, suppose there is terrorism, and suppose there is a section of people who want to destroy others. How do we face that situation? Can be very loving and compassionate with them? No, it's impossible. So there are moments, there are occasions when we have to face situations aggressively. But that aggressiveness doesn't mean you are not compassionate. You are compassionate. You are compassionate to humanity because these people are going to destroy the rest of the world, the rest of humanity. So you are still compassionate. But as long as you are here in this world, you are also a responsible person. You have a responsibility to your fellow human beings. How do you discharge that? So imagine standing on the roadside, observing various vehicles, buses, trucks, cars, limousines, ambulances, maybe even a hearse. As you watch, the focus shifts. I'm just giving you an idea on how to meditate, if you're interested. As you watch, the focus shifts to the road, constant and permanent, serving as the foundation beneath the changing phenomenon. Even in heavy bumper-to-bumper traffic, a gap reveals this substratum. And we must practice shifting our consciousness from thoughts, when I say thoughts, negative thoughts, to awareness to achieve lasting epistemic virtues. So don't try to change the world. You cannot change the world. To be very, very blunt about it. You cannot change others. You cannot change our politicians, can you? You can declare war against them. They are not going to change because I'm talking about politicians all over the world. I mean, there are exceptions. There are good politicians. But in general, they don't feel the guilt. They consider vices as virtues. And they don't repent. And I mean, it's not just politicians. You can see people like that in every area of action. How do you change them? So what is the practical way? Instead of declaring war against them, be in peaceful terms with you. And then, if you find that light within, then you can spread that light around. You saw that mission, the vision, what was that mission, right? Amrita's vision. So I think that's what we should do. And that's what we should encourage. Just little bit of goodness. But whatever little bit of goodness you have, practice it. Practice it. Maybe it is just 2%. Fine. 2% is 50,000 students. If they do 2% of virtue, if they practice 2% of virtue, that's huge. So encourage your students to dedicate 2% for society. Is there a difference between service and compassion? There is absolutely no difference. Real service means selflessness. You don't expect anything. For example, you're walking. The street is It's all empty. It's twilight time. Lonely. Nobody around. And there is someone walking right in front of you. And his wallet falls down. You pick it up, give it back to him, and you go your way. Or do you look around, any photographers around? Any TV channels? No, you don't worry. That is selflessness. That's spontaneity. Spontaneous. Whenever you are spontaneous, you are selfless. Whenever you are spontaneous, you are doing real service. That's real compassion. So it's all connected. So basically, there is no difference. That's what I said. These virtues are all connected. If you have love, you have patience. If you have love, you have perseverance. If you have love, you have forbearance. So it's all connected. It's not, it's like one virtue comes, the next one comes after 1 or 2 days. The other, next one next week. No. Just one. One virtue. Focus on one virtue. That's enough. Everything else will come. Look at a mother. Amma says, look at a mother. She loves her child in the womb. 9 months. 9 months. She's confined. She has to observe strict rules and regulations. And she sticks to that meticulously, unfailingly. Why? She's patient. She's perseverant. She has forbearance. She has everything. She doesn't watch movies, violent movies. She doesn't go out unnecessarily if the doctor advises so. She doesn't go to crowds. Why? Just all because of the child, the love for the child. So love is the most spontaneous thing. It's the closest to all of us. Have you seen a a little baby of any animal or bird or human beings? When a cow gives birth, the calf is full of dirt. But the cow just licks all the dirt and cleanses its calf. Why? So that's, Amma speaks only one single language. That's her mother tongue, Malayalam. She doesn't speak any other language. But Amma travels throughout the world. And she communicates with everyone. And she feels at home everywhere. And people feel so close to her. They open up to her. And Amma understands them and they understand Amma. It's a flow, it's a real meeting. As Amma says, it's a real meeting of hearts. So real meeting only happens when the hearts meet, not when the bodies meet. So there is the inventor of India's supercomputer, one Dr. Vijay Bhatkar. He says that Amma has literally made love a universal language. Love understands everything. You should watch Amma giving darshan. People from all nationalities come. And they speak to Amma and Amma understands. So it's not words. It's something beyond. Love is beyond. Love is transcendental. I was speaking to a doctor, one of our surgeons, main consultants. And he was telling me about the complicated surgery he does every day. And he told me at one point, Swamiji, the human body is so disgusting. All this blood and intestines, the internal organs, my God, it's really bad. He said that. And a few moments later, he was talking about his girlfriend. And he became very emotional. He said, there is so much opposition from my parents, but I cannot live without her. I must marry her. Look at the contradiction. On one side, he talks about the disgusting nature of the body. And on the other side, when he speaks about his girlfriend, it transcends the body. So what is love? Everything, whenever we are spontaneous, we are in contact with love. Not ordinary love. Something beyond the love that comes from an unknown place. Amma gives a beautiful example. Suppose a guitar player is playing. Beautiful, magical, miraculous. And now once he finishes the concert, ask him, where does the music come from? He might say, from my fingertips. Okay, let me open up your fingertips and see if music is sitting there. No. He may say, from my heart. Okay, let me open up your heart. Do you see music sitting there? No. So from where does music come from? Beyond. And this happens to everyone, not just the musicians. Teachers, sometimes you are so spontaneous, and the students are drawn to you. They gravitate towards you. On certain days, students say it was boring. They don't listen to you. So whenever your students listen to you, you become an inspirer. You are speaking from your heart. Whether it is science, mathematics, any complicated subject, when you speak from your heart, the students listen. You don't have to force. And the students also feel inspired and they understand everything. But when you are mechanical, they will feel bored and you will feel tired after the class. So these are simple things. Though I'm just, giving all these examples, it's not so complicated. It's not at all complicated. It's very simple. But the mind makes everything complicated. That's the problem. So please don't listen to the mind. Listen to the heart. Listen to your conscience. And the conscience never tells lies. That's why meditation is important. Self-examination is important. Observation is important. Listen. And you will get the right guidance. Thank you so much. Thank you once again.